warmest of greetings to you.
Who are you?
I am your storyteller, Chip. And can you keep a secret? Yeah? Well, you see, the woman in this story really could not. She was the wife of a farmer. And if you told her a secret, by the end of the day, the whole village would know about it. By the end of the week, the whole land would know about it. And if that something was worth knowing, soon the king would know about it. Normally, this wasn't a problem because, well, she was the wife of a farmer. She couldn't know any big secrets, could she? Until the day her husband, the farmer, discovered a huge secret. Now, at the start of this story, the farmer was digging in his field for turnips. And yeah, you can join in with this if you like. He was digging for turnips because that was his job. He was a farmer. And as he was digging, suddenly he hit something really hard. And that was definitely not a turnip. So he dug around it, and out from the ground he pulled a big box full of gold coins. How amazing was that? And his first words were, "Oh no!" Is that what you would say if you found a big box of gold coins? Well, the farmer, you see, the first thought he had was about his wife. He knew that if he'd found this big box of gold coins, she would not be able to keep it a secret. And that would mean by the end of the day, the whole village would know about it. By the end of the week, the whole land would know about it. And soon, the king would know about it. And when he found out, the king wouldn't just take all of the gold for himself, but he would probably put the farmer and his wife in jail for hiding the gold, even though they didn't know it was there. So no, it wasn't fair, but that was the kind of king they had. So the farmer knew that this gold was actually a big problem, and he needed to do something to hide it from his wife. So that night, as soon as his wife had gone to bed, the farmer crept out into the field to take that gold and hide it in his kitchen underneath the floorboards. So he did this as quietly as possible. And you can join in if you like, but you'll need to try and be as quiet as possible as well. You need to lift it up as quietly as you can. Carry it into the kitchen and put it down gently, gently. Then you need to very quietly pull up the floorboards. As quietly as you can. Very good. Quietly as you can. And as quietly as you can, drop the box underneath the floorboard. What are you doing? And the farmer looked up and saw in terror that there was his wife looking down from the stairs. And he'd been caught. What could he do? He could only say to her, "Now, my lovely wife, this is not what it looks like. Well, you see, this looks like a big box of gold, but actually, it's a secret." And the wife looked at the gold, and her eyes went bright gold too, and opened really, really wide. And she said, "Oh, yes, husband, it is a big secret. Don't worry, your secret's safe with me." Do you think it is? Do you think the secret's safe with her? Well, after they had finished hiding the gold there in their kitchen, the two of them went to bed. And that whole night, they hardly got any sleep. The wife was tucked up in bed, and she was thinking of all the amazing things she would be able to do and buy now that she had all of that gold. I mean, if you had all of that gold, so much gold that you could buy anything you wanted, what would you get? What sort of things would you get? You'd have all sorts of things, wouldn't you? All of these thoughts were flying through her head. She didn't get much sleep that night until at last all of those thoughts carried her off to dreamland. But the farmer, he didn't sleep either. Not because he was thinking of lovely things he could spend gold on, but actually because he was worried about what was going to happen now his wife knew the secret. She was going to go to the marketplace, and by the end of the day, the whole village would know about it. By the end of the week, the whole land would know about it. And soon, who would know about it? The king would know about it. And he would take the gold and he would probably throw them into jail. In fact, the farmer's worries were so great that he didn't get any sleep at all. And that meant that he was still awake when the sun began to come up over the horizon. And the farmer came up with a plan. He jumped out of bed and rushed to the marketplace before his wife had woken up. And he went to see the baker. He bought some bread. That's what you buy from the baker, isn't it? Then he went to the fishmonger, which is where he bought some fish. Then he went to the butcher, which is where he bought some sausages. And he took the bread, the fish, and the sausages to the forest, where he put the bread up in the trees. He put the fish among the flowers. And he put the sausages on the end of a piece of string, one end on a stick, and the sausages in the lake, the big pool of water in the middle of the forest. No, this is not what you would normally do. But having done all of it and feeling very good about himself, the farmer rushed back to his home, rushed into his bedroom, whipped open the curtains so that the sunlight streamed in onto the figure of his sleeping wife and said, "Good morning, my darling. Oh, I am so happy to see you on this fine morning. I really do think this is the perfect morning for a walk. We haven't had a walk in the forest for such a long time. Why don't we go for a walk in the forest, my darling?" And of course, she'd only just woken up. So his wife yawned and said, "Okay, whatever you say, darling." And off they went for a walk in the forest. And after they'd been going for some time, the wife was looking around at some of the trees, and there in the trees, she spotted the bread. And she said, "Husband, husband, there's bread nesting in the trees." And the farmer said, "Bread nesting in the trees? At this time of year?" We are so lucky to see that. This has to be the luckiest day ever. And on they kept on walking. And as they were walking along, the wife looked at some of those beautiful flowers in the fields, and there in the flowers, she saw fish, lots of fish. And she said, husband, there's fish swimming among the flowers. And the farmer said, fish? Swimming among the flowers? At this time of year? We are so lucky to see that. Hardly anybody gets to see that. We must be the luckiest people. This must be the luckiest day ever. Come on. And on they went through the forest. And as they got closer to the lake, the farmer said to his wife, now, darling, I thought we could have breakfast here in the lake. And I put some string into the lake to see what we could catch for breakfast. Would you like to pull it in? And his wife went over and pulled on that string. And out from the other end came sausages. She was expecting fish. She wasn't expecting sausages. And she turned to her husband and said, husband, you've caught sausages in the lake. And the farmer said, sausages in the lake? At this time of year? We are the luckiest people in the world. Certainly, no one ever gets to catch sausages at this time of year. This is the luckiest day ever. And so they ate their sausages, went back to their house, and then got on with their normal working day. The farmer going into the field to do all of his digging, and the wife off to the marketplace to buy what she needed for the day. But do you think she'd forgotten about the gold? Well, you see, this wife could not keep a secret. And so, by the end of the day, everybody in the village knew about that big box of gold. By the end of the week, everybody in the land knew they'd found that big box of gold. And so, eventually, who found out about it?
King.
The king heard about that gold. And not long later, when the farmer and his wife were back at home, there was a big knock at the door. Boom, boom, boom. And the farmer and his wife opened it to see two very big, strong guards who'd been sent from the king to take them to the palace. And now I'm sure you've probably realized by now that the king in this story was quite a mean and greedy man. And so when he had the farmer and his wife in front of him, munching messily on an apple, I hear that you've found a big box of gold. That's gonna be mine, that is. And you, for hiding it from me, well, you have a choice. You can give it to me and I'll put you in jail. Or you keep hiding it from me, I find it and I cut off your heads. Yeah, what'll it be, huh? Well, the farmer looked terrified. And he said, Your Majesty, I don't know what you have heard, but I can promise you that there is no gold at all. We did not find any box of gold. And the king said, Oh, now I know this is a lie. Because I have it on very good authority that you have a box of gold. I know your wife says you have a big box of gold. And when the farmer heard that, he said, I'm sorry, Your Majesty, but my wife, you think my wife, you think my wife was telling the truth? Now, when the farmer started laughing like that, this actually made his wife very cross. And she said, "Husband, how dare you? How dare you make it look like I only say silly things? That is not true. We definitely did find that big box of gold." And the farmer looked back at his wife and said, Oh, did we? Did we, my darling? Tell me, when did we find this big box of gold? And the wife said, "Oh, husband, you'll remember, I'm sure. It was the day before, the luckiest day we've ever had. You remember that day? That was the day we saw the bread in the trees. Do you remember that? The bread nesting in the trees. And it was the day before we saw the fish swimming in the flowers. That was so lucky, wasn't it, that day? And that was the day before we caught the sausages in the lake. What a lucky day that had been." Well, when the king heard the wife saying all of that, he looked at her. He looked at the farmer. And he threw his apple up in the air and said, "That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Bread in trees? Fish in flowers? Catching sausages in the lake? Nobody does that. You're making up nonsense. Get out of my palace before I throw you in jail." And so the farmer and his wife got to go back home. The wife was still a bit cross with the farmer for making it look like she was talking nonsense. But that very quickly went away when she realized that she still had the gold to spend. And all those things that you would have spent your gold on and what you'd done, well, that was exactly what the wife did as well, and much more besides. But from that day on, whenever that wife told a story in the marketplace, people didn't believe it. People thought this wasn't something true, this was just a tale. Even the tale that you've heard just now. They still shared those tales though. If you heard a story from that wife, by the end of the day, the whole village would know about it. By the end of the week, the whole land would know that story. And if that story was worth knowing, even you would hear about it. People say that lady became one of the first storytellers in Russia, where this story comes from. And after telling that story so much and passing it on from person to person to person, it eventually reached the ears of a man called Hugh Lupton, who told it to a friend called Yanina Vigers, who told it to me. And now I'm telling it to you, so you can share it with other people you know. I wonder who you're going to share it with. thank you so much for sharing that silly story with me. It's so silly, I think that's probably why it's one of my favorites, but I'd love to know what you thought of it. So please look for where it says review and follow the instructions to do just that. Let me know what you thought of the story. And while you're there, why not have a go at our epic challenge? If you send your creativity to me, you never know, I could be jumping on a one-to-one storytelling video call with you. Now, if you like silly stories, there's an even sillier one that still has a farmer, a wife, a fish in the forest, and even sausages. And if you're an epic explorer, that is the bonus story you can listen to right now. And if you're not an epic explorer yet, you can become one by going to fablespodcast.co.uk. Right now though, it only remains for me to say cheerio, and I hope to hear your story soon. So, cheerio! And I hope to hear your story soon.